We did have a couple things to look at, though, didn't we? God's Experience, large EXP+. It's literally God's Experience, I guess, and his is better than yours because he gets more. We do have the Grand Design. There were a couple... What was the important thing? It was Momo's special attack. She got Gold Crown, increase abilities of all allies. So that's not going to get me a finished strike, but it's definitely something I could look into using a little bit as we continue forward. Speaking of moving forward, though, let's not do that and read out of the database. So we do have a little bit to go over, mostly about, well, the URTVs and Dmitri, as I'm sure you might imagine considering what happened to us last time. I'll read a good portion of it because there's always a good opportunity at this point to go over a refresher before we start getting to the new information. We're going to start with albedo here. A lot of this is not necessary, but down here we'll start. Born as conjoined twins with Junior, the two strongly felt like they were a part of each other's body even after they were separated. His Udu contamination was the result of the collapse of that psychic bond, caused when Junior Rubido shut his mind out in fear of Udu going out of control. Albedo consequently felt that he had been betrayed and abandoned by his other half, his own brother. His obsessive manner when dealing with Junior was a result of the psychological shock he had received at that time. His half-mad personality was the result of Udu contamination, but even before that incident, he was unable to understand the fear of injury or death experienced by others due to his immortal condition. Perhaps as a reaction to this, he developed an acute fear of rejection and solitude and was pathologically obsessed with forming relationships with others. After the Miltian conflict, he was found lying unconscious under the central shaft of the Song of Nephilim by Sellers, who had attempted to escape from Miltia by forcing the song to surface. At this time, albedo was half dead, presumably as a result of being hit by waveforms which had been released by Negredo, the URTV's failsafe and acting executioner. Once he finally recovered from the attack of his would-be executioner, albedo turned to the UTIC organization and Ormus. He joined forces with Margulis and Sellers to obtain the Y data which Joachim Mizrahi had left, although albedo's true objective was a complete link with Udu, which is the only possible way of granting his desire for oblivion. Together with Margulis, he doggedly pursued Momo, Mizrahi's final creation, in order to revive the Zohar that slept on Miltia. His unnatural fixation on Momo was the result not only of his desire to seize the Y data, but also of the relationship shared between Junior and the girl on whom Momo had been modeled, Sakura Mizrahi. Sakura and Junior's friendly behavior caused albedo to feel lonely and excluded, eventually leading him to enviously wonder how he might interact with others in the same fashion. However, being unable to understand others' pain and consequently unable to touch their hearts, he could only express his emotions in a twisted manner. His seemingly cruel behavior towards not only Momo but the Kirschwashers as well was another warped reflection of his envious feelings towards such unity and emotional communion. Having obtained the Y data, revived Miltia, and finally linked again with Udu, albedo was assimilated into Udu, becoming one with its waveforms and awaited oblivion at the hands of Junior's anti-waveforms. That's the end of episode 2. While albedo's true desire was unity with Junior, his choice of death was the only means of escaping from the impossibility of that reality, motivated by the thought that if unity is impossible, oblivion is the next best thing. He achieved oblivion at Junior's hands by accepting Udu's characteristics into a part of himself. In his mind, this must have been the best way to get close to Junior. His choice to rely on Junior, even though he could have used his URTV ability to cause a mutual annihilation effect with Udu on his own, is further proof of this notion. While oblivion did grant a portion of his wish, it was also undeniably an effort to escape the reality he faced. Wilhelm negotiated with albedo, proposing to unify him with Junior. Albedo recognized his true desire and was reborn as a testament. Albedo initially attempted to fill his role as a testament, but instead chose to perish with Dmitri, who had merged with Udo through Omega. He attempted to use the power of the testament to perish with Dmitri in order to protect Junior. However, Guinan took his place at the last minute, effectively fulfilling Albedo's true desire, achieving a true psychic union with Junior. And that's the update on Albedo. So we do get an update on the White Testament, as I'm sure you might imagine. Albedo Piazzolla's testament form. See Albedo. That's all that's really been updated there. So yeah, we do officially find out at the end of the last chapter, even though the game pretty much gave it away a couple times earlier in the game, including in Haycox of all places. Next up, we do have Guinan. We'll skip quite a bit of this. He does possess the power to control the thoughts of others and the power of hypnotic suggestion, interference with a person's consciousness, using his voice as a medium. That's how we got Mary and Shelley, I'm sure of it. We have gone through most of that, and his name is Kukai. There we go. Unlike the other URTVs, Guinan was not programmed to react to Udo waveforms. His true role was to act as a failsafe in the event that a powerful variant went berserk, specifically the elimination of Junior. Furthermore, Dmitri Yuriev planned to extend his own life by transplanting his psyche into Guinan, due to Guinan's special powers. After his body was taken over by Dmitri, Guinan was forced to work towards Dmitri's goals, regardless of his own will. This ultimately brought about the military occupation of the Durandal and the awakening of Abel's Ark. Although Guinan was asleep in the far reaches of Dmitri's consciousness, he was well aware of Albedo's true desire to be rid of both Guinan and Dmitri, and made it a reality by forcing Albedo's consciousness into Junior's body so he could annihilate himself along with Dmitri. Albedo technically is still alive inside Junior. Putting it, saying that Albedo's asleep, though, is kind of simplifying a little bit. Alright, we do have more information on Junior. I'm sure his is pretty large, so I have to really start paying attention to what might be new around here. Here we go. I'll probably have to read this one too. It's difficult to think that Dmitri, having personally experienced direct contact with Udo, would have created the URTVs without realizing this. Realizing what? That Junior could not absolutely destroy Udo. He could only destroy a part of Udo. That's what they're talking about. Perhaps it is more likely that Junior and his kind were created out of a need to accumulate data before Dmitri could ascend to an existence equivalent to Udo. In fact, Dmitri, who had been monitoring Albedo's subconscious through Kanan, obtained the Y data, revived the Relic of God, and proceeded to the Ark in order to become his kin. So, Kanan was monitoring Albedo's subconscious, apparently. Junior was able to reunite with Albedo through Guinan's sacrifice. Although objectively his condition became that of two minds inhabiting a single body, his relationship with Albedo is like the two sides of a single being. It is possible that their minds were originally one and the same, due to their birth as conjoined twins. Perhaps Guinan's actions were not simply out of self-sacrifice, but were motivated by that knowledge and the desire to restore the two of them to their rightful form. That's one way to put it, but they said they were like back to back, didn't they? Not shared the same head. Update to Dmitri Yuriev. Let's see what we have that is new here. Right, the first Salvatore, all that good stuff. All right, we'll start. Oh, well, that's pretty much all the way down at the bottom, isn't it? We'll start with the terror here, then. The terror he felt at the time resulted in trauma, which later motivated him to assemble the URTVs in the hope of obliterating Udo entirely, as a result of the trauma contacting Udo. Using the special powers he developed as a result of his contact with Udo, he projected his consciousness into the body of URTV survivor Guinan Kukai and gripped the reins of the Zohar Project. Feels like we already knew that and read that, but I don't see anything else around here that would be considered new. Yeah, all that we've read before, I feel. Maybe I'm missing something. Heinlein! As it turns out, it's Wilhelm. That's kind of a big deal. So let's go over Heinlein, since he is a very minor character, really, in the scheme of things. They have talked about him a bit, but we don't really get to hear from Heinlein too much. As it turns out, it was Wilhelm, though. Heinlein is the Hyams Corporation representative and Ormus Cardinal, responsible for technological research and development and securing funds. He is the second most influential member of Ormus after Sergius XVII, who died at the end of episode 2. Despite this, he has never shown himself in public. Even Margulis and his men have never seen him directly until now. Many, including Margulis, sympathize with Heinlein's wish for a return to Lost Jerusalem through Ormus and give him their loyalty. After the death of Sergius XVII, he assumes control of Ormus and moves to take back Ormus's holy land, Mictum. His true identity is Wilhelm, who owned and operated both Vector and Hyams. The development of a Vector-manufactured ES at Labyrinthos was all part of Wilhelm's plan. So, as it turns out, Vector and Hyams are owned by the same guy. Wilhelm pretty much runs the universe through his companies, because apparently government is not the way that you want to take care of that. It's through the corporations that you establish. It looks like that is it for the characters here. Let's move on to locations. Hold on one second, though. Let me just double check something real quick. Seems to be working properly. Let's continue on. I thought we do have an update here. An update to the Yuriev Institute. It is an Udu research organization established by Dmitri Yuriev in the TC 4660s. It unraveled the Udu phenomenon and developed and raised the URTVs as a countermeasure. Since its backbone consists of salvators from political and financial circles, it is assured both assorted government amnesties and abundant funding for its activities. It possesses a private force the size of the military of an autonomous state. Although this private force is small in scope, it has absolute command superiority over the Salvators in the Federation military. As a result, it could be said that the entire non-immigrant fleet portion of the Federation military is essentially under the command of Dimitri's private force. Once again, I don't necessarily see anything all that new here. Maybe it's just a new link going out. But that is it for locations. Time to move on to Unknown, where we do have a few things. The ES Simeon, it is Albedo's unit that we have read. It was built at a military factory in Labyrinthos on Miltia, because Hyams and Vector are essentially they have common goals, I should say. After becoming a testament, Albedo switched his vessel of Anima over for use in a new unit, but its name and basic specs remain the same. So Albedo took the vessel of Anima out of the ES Simeon and now has it in his White Testament ES instead of the ES Simeon. We do have, Yeshua. We do have an update to Udu Simulator here, a system built by the Yuriev Institute, mainly used for URTV link experiments, that creates artificial Udu waves within the encephalon. This simulator was also used to conduct adjustment of the URTV's anti-waveforms. Although the Udu waves this system produces are purely artificial, there have been several accidents during encephalon drills that have caused standard URTVs to become infected. The Udu waveform sample on which this system was based was provided by Dmitri Yuriev, the person in charge of the facility. It is not revealed when he procured the sample, unless you go right down here. Dmitri Yuriev was once a test subject in a transfer experiment involving living beings, bringing him into contact with Udu. He carried out the design for this system using a waveform sample procured from the data from that time, hopefully not the one that drove him insane. Next we do have Omega Metempsychosis. The ultimate Omega configuration, a mutation that resulted from taking in the Zohar and completely reconstructing the Y data information, one of the relics of God. The external transformation that occurred when it took in the Zohar stemmed from the self-transforming mechanism in the Omega waking from its long sleep. It is thought that the Omega existed in a form similar to this configuration during the Lost Jerusalem era. Able has been built into the control device in the unit's core due to the need for the higher dimensional power flowing directly through the Zohar to be stabilized for dimensional space. Omega metempsychosis can be translated as Omega spirit transmigration. That's one way to put it. Psychosis means something else to me, but who am I to question? Xenosaga. We do have an update to Omega Res Novae, or Novae, probably Novae. There we go. Although it does not house the original Zohar itself, it uses Able as its core module and an emulator as an auxiliary, making its power far greater than the original Proto-Omega. The exterior itself is not greatly different. However, since an emulator is being used in place of the Zohar at the core, functionality is unstable and at a lower power output. This is what we fought. It was recreated and partially upgraded by Dmitri Yuriev as an anti-immigrant fleet weapon. So this is what we fought with Dmitri, right? This was hanging out in the background. The Omega Res Novae was Novae. I keep on messing that up. Was in the background when we fought Dmitri, and then we fought metempsychosis immediately after that. Anything more? You bet we have more. We have Natus Glacius, and I'm sure I'm saying this terribly. I believe this is actually Latin, and that means I'm going to get it wrong. A giant life form born after the Gnosis, which had gathered around the Zohar emulator, suddenly mutated within the environment inside Abel's Ark. Its slender bluish-green body seems frail at first glance, but it has both the power to swing its main weapon, a large sword, around easily, and the grace to be in complete control of even the smallest of movements. The name Natus Glacius means one awoken from the ice. Yeah, Natus, I know French a little bit, and that does sound like the word for born, and then glacius, glacier, ice. So there you go, born of ice. Next we have Natus Tellus, a giant life form born after the Gnosis, which had gathered around the Zohar emulator, suddenly mutated within the environment inside Abel's Ark. Its dark green and orange body, the picture of stability, apparently green and orange are stable, boasts an overwhelming advantage in extreme close combat. The transformable drill mechanism installed on its left arm has enough power to pulverize anything instantly. Well, then I guess it's good that it didn't use it on me, otherwise I would have lost. The name Natus Tellus means one sprung forth from the earth. Maybe that would be more apparent if it was Terrus, like Terrus, Tellus. I don't know. Doesn't sound like that to me.